Buying a home, that used to be the American dream, right? Well, for Gen Z, it's kind of turned into a financial nightmare. So, in the next few minutes, we're going to break down the 5 huge barriers that are keeping you locked out of the housing market, and more importantly, what some people are actually doing about it.
Okay, let's just get right to it. The first roadblock is this number, over $400,000. That's the median home price in the US right now. And for most young people, that's not a goal, it's a giant brick wall. I mean, have you ever been scrolling through Zillow and you just get that sinking feeling in your stomach? If you have, you are definitely not alone. That feeling that it's just an impossible dream, yeah, that's pretty much the new reality for a whole generation.
So, you have to wonder, is this just bad luck? Or is the whole game kind of rigged? Well, we've dug into the data, and we've found 5 big systemic forces that are absolutely working against you.
All right, first up, let's talk about what we're calling the impossible climb. This is the financial trap that basically stops you in your tracks before you can even think about saving for a down payment. Okay, take a look at a typical budget for someone in Gen Z. A huge chunk, like 35%, just goes straight to rent. Another 30% is for just living, food, gas, the basics. Then, bam, another 25% gets eaten up by student loans. So what's left for savings? A tiny 10%. At that rate, trying to save up $40,000 for a down payment would take you more than a decade, and that's if nothing else goes wrong. It's just a mathematical nightmare.
And this is what locks you into that generation rent cycle. It's brutal. Your rent is so high, you can't save. Because you can't save, you can't buy a house. And because you can't buy a house, well, you're stuck paying that sky-high rent. It's a vicious loop that feels almost designed to keep you trapped.
And the result of all this? A pretty shocking number. About 31% of Gen Z adults are living with their parents. And let's be clear, this is not a failure to launch. It's a direct consequence of a system that feels, well, broken. So yeah, this has nothing to do with skipping your morning latte, okay? This is about huge systemic barriers. So let's really break down the 5 big reasons why the whole game can feel so rigged against you.
All right, barrier number 1 is what we call the money gap. And it's really simple. The amount of money you make is just nowhere near what a house actually costs.
This chart right here just says it all. If you look back to the 1970s, home prices have exploded. They're up over 120%. Meanwhile, wages, they've barely budged, only growing about 15% when you account for inflation. The gap between the two isn't just widening, it's a canyon at this point. Let's put that in real-world dollars, because this is where it gets crazy. For that $400,000 home, you need a down payment, let's say 10%. That's 40 grand. The brutal, honest truth, only about 8% of Gen Z actually has that much cash saved up. For the other 92% of young buyers, the race is over before it even begins. Okay, on to barrier number 2, the debt anchor. And for millions of people, that's exactly what it feels like, a heavy ball and chain holding them back financially. Get this. A massive 70% of Gen Z says student debt is the main reason they can't buy a home. It's not just that monthly payment. It's a huge red flag when you apply for a mortgage, and it's basically a black hole that just sucks up any money you might have tried to save. Now, barrier number 3. This one actually has nothing to do with your bank account. It's about the houses themselves, or more accurately, the fact that there just aren't enough of them. America is deep in a massive housing supply crisis. It really comes down to simple supply and demand. For decades, we just haven't built enough new homes. At the same time, the population keeps growing. And on top of that, older generations are staying in their homes longer. The result is exactly what you'd expect. Way too many buyers fighting over way too few houses. And that only pushes prices in one direction, up. And this whole supply crisis leads right into barrier number 4, just brutal competition. Because when a decent house finally does hit the market, you're not just going up against other young buyers like yourself. No, here's who you're really up against. You've got the typical Gen Z buyer on one side, needing a loan, savings stretched thin. And on the other side, you have older, wealthier buyers. And check this out, 26% of them can just pay with all cash. In a bidding war, who do you really think is going to win that fight? And that brings us to the final barrier, number 5. And honestly, this might be the biggest one of all. It's about a fundamental shift in what a house even means anymore. See, in the past, a home was, well, it was shelter, a place to live.
Today, it's treated like a financial asset, something to be bought and sold just like a stock. And this big shift has opened the door for massive Wall Street firms to come into regular neighborhoods. They're not buying these houses to live in them. Nope. They're buying them up to rent them back to people like you, turning your need for shelter into their source of profit.
Okay, so if the old rules are completely broken, what's the new game? Well, out of pure necessity, Gen Z is literally writing a brand new playbook for how to become a homeowner.
Here are the 3 big strategies people are using. First up is co-buying, pooling your money with friends or family just to get enough for that down payment. Second is basically shrinking the dream, right? People are opting for tiny homes to slash costs. And third is rethinking location, which is a fancy way of saying they're leaving expensive cities for cheaper places where their dollar actually goes further. So the dream isn't totally dead. It's just adapting to survive.
So what's the final takeaway here? What's the bottom line? The real crisis, when you look at all this, isn't just about the money. It's about the fact that a core piece of the American dream is being completely rewritten.
There's this one quote from all the research that really just says it all. The idea that you graduate, get a good job, and then you buy a house, that's just not the middle-class normal anymore. It's actually become a luxury. It's a symbol of real wealth, not just a standard milestone everyone hits.
And all of this leaves us with a really critical question. Is the old dream of owning a single-family home completely dead? Or is a new generation just rewriting what that dream even looks like? The one thing we know for sure is that the path to owning a home has changed forever. The real question is, are you prepared to change with it?